Everyone loves an underdog story, right? And Harley Davidson is also cooking up quite the underdog story with this, their first ever adventure motorcycle, the Pan America. Now I know it sounds weird to call a company as old and as well established as Harley an underdog, right? But things have not been looking very good for the American brand over the last few years in terms of sales figures, right? Despite their new range of motorcycles being so much better. Like if you look at the new Fat Bob or even the Fat Boy for the matter, they are so much better in terms of riding dynamics, in terms of handling with the new suspension, yeah, despite their weight and size. Then you have the LiveWire, which I think is perhaps the best motorcycle they've ever made in terms of, again, riding dynamics, performance and technology. But then they went on and priced it really high, especially for a tech which the motorcycling world as a whole is yet to fully embrace. And then I saw this, the Pan America flying in the air when the first images hit the internet. And I couldn't help but feel that this was a desperate attempt at Harley to enter this highly contested adventure segment so late in the day. Maybe it was desperation which has led them to throw everything at this to ensure they hit the ground running. And you know what? They have. The centerpiece of the Pan America is undoubtedly the new Revolution Max engine. Liquid-cooled V-twin 1252cc. It's an absolute powerhouse. Pumps out 150 horses, 128 Newton meters of torque, and more importantly, you have a big, fat power band because of the variable valve timing. I mean, I've never seen a bike this heavy, this long, pull wheelies so big, so easily. It's like whatever it has lost out on the low-end torque compared to the other Harleys, it more than makes up for it with its stonking mid-range. And once past 6,000 RPM, it goes like stink, right up to its 9,500 RPM. It never runs out of steam. Almost reminds me of the Ducati Multistrada 1260. You know, it's really, really strong up top as well. And unlike the Ducati, this one, the engine also gets hydraulic lifters, which means you never ever have to worry about the expensive valve adjustment intervals. And to get the most out of this engine, Harley have also given you all the electronic wizardry. Now this is the Pan America Special, which means you get 4 existing preset riding modes and 3 custom modes, which allow you to change everything from the power map, the throttle sensitivity. You have lean sensitive traction control. You can adjust the level of intervention for that, as well as engine braking. And luckily, to match the might of this engine, you also get a really potent braking system, which is again lean sensitive, which means you get cornering ABS. We are talking about twin 320mm disc at the front, paired to Brembo monoblock calipers, as well as they are further linked to the floating caliper and disc at the back to ensure that you can drop anchor in a hurry. And as you would expect, you also get all sorts of creature comforts like cornering lights, you get heated grips, you get cruise control, you get hill hold control, you get tire pressure monitoring system, all as standard, which is impressive. But the party trick here is undoubtedly what Harley Davidson have managed to do before anyone else, which is ride height adjustment. Now it's an additional option which you can purchase, which works in tandem with the Showa balance-free electronic suspension which the Special has, and it reduces the seat height when the motorcycle or the IMU senses that you're coming to a stop. And as soon as you start moving, it again ramps up the preload, so you have all the ground clearance that you require, which I think is ingenious. And it's a real pity that I cannot show it on this bike because this press bike doesn't have it. But I think it's going to be the single biggest factor for Harley Davidson when it comes to Pan America, because if you look at their target audience, existing Harley owners who are so used to bikes with such low seat height, I think that will play a big role in terms of even giving the Pan America a shot, considering its 848 seat height, and that too in this lower position. And what the ride height adjustment does is it reduces it to a very manageable 830 which I think is ingenious, because once you get over your preconception about the seat height and you actually swing your leg over, is also when you realize that once you get moving, the Pan America actually hides its 258 kg curb weight really, really well. I mean, I won't go as far as comparing it to the 1250 GS or the 790 Adventure in terms of balance, but it's definitely not as top heavy as, say, the Tiger 1200. And that's because Harley has done a good job of keeping the center of mass down by keeping the battery as well as all the other major electrical components closer to the sum guard. In fact, even the tank is made of aluminium rather than metal to keep the weight down, literally. And when you couple that with the very well dialed in electronic suspension, in the Pan America, you have a really solid travel companion. On the road, I was quite impressed with the engine. It's smooth, refined. I mean, there is a little bit of buzz which comes around 4500 RPM, but it smoothens out as the revs climb and also as you switch into a higher gear. Even in terms of suspension, it works really well. You have 190 mm of travel on both ends, which means the ride quality is really good, even in the normal road mode, which you can of course tweak in custom mode in terms of both preload as well as damping. The bike, despite the 19-inch front and the 17-inch rear, feels quite good in corners. Of course, it requires more effort to get it to turn in, tip in. But once inside, it feels really sure-footed and also very, very stable at higher speeds. In terms of ergonomics, they are nice and upright, comfortable. You have a lot of space to move around. I love the seats. They're nice, wide, well padded for long distances. Also really comfortable for the pillion and easy to mount luggage on. You have the windscreen, which is 4-way adjustable. It works quite well in the second to last setting from the topmost position. So yeah, overall, as far as big mile munching goes, this is as good as it gets, like any of the competition. And the best part is, the fun doesn't end there. The litmus test for any big, burly adventure motorcycle is how it goes off-road. And the Special luckily comes well equipped to take the road less traveled. We are talking 210 mm of ground clearance. You get these spoke wheels as accessories, but you also get the aluminium sum guard, the engine guard, as well as the main stand as standard. Then you get this really grippy off-road pegs for the rider as well as pillion. I really like how the rear foot peg is adjustable for height, which is very cool. And you also get the all-in steering damper to save you from those nasty tank slappers. Then on the electronics front, you get two dedicated off-road riding modes, which obviously run on softer maps. They reduce the sensitivity of the throttle and also the level of intervention from the traction control to allow a little more slide. And you can also switch it off completely using this button right here. The same way you can switch off the rear ABS in the off-road mode by pressing on the mode button. And also in the off-road setting, the suspension setup also changes. The damping levels are more to suit the off-road setting, which you can tweak even further by going for the off-road soft or the off-road firm setting based on your riding style and the kind of terrain that you're riding in. And I'm happy to report how all of these things come together really well on the Special, because the softer map in the off-road mode means that it puts the power down in a very progressive manner. Also, the traction control allows a little more slide, but again in a very progressive way. And it's always there to watch your back to make sure things don't go out of control. And even when I switched off the traction control, I was amazed how confident I felt even when the rear came around all the way, highlighting the perfect weight distribution as well as the balance, and of course the suspension setup and how well tuned it is for off-road conditions. Always keeping you on top of the amount of grip available. But yeah, it is a soft roader. I mean, you'll have an absolute blast riding on wide gravel trails, right? And even when it comes to rocky technical terrain, it's more than capable to take you there, provided you don't add speed to the equation. When I started going faster on rocky terrain, on boulders, I could see the front, 19-inch front start struggling irrespective of what damping setting I was on. A lot of times the suspension blowing through its stroke. But in terms of capability, there was no problems because the ground clearance was never an issue. I also liked how the clutch was nice and easy to feather on really technical terrain. And even when we put this in really muddy slush pits with road tires, I was amazed with how easily the front just plowed through, inspiring a lot of confidence. Which brings us to the million-dollar question. If I will choose the Pan America or the 1250 GS? And the answer to that question is no, not yet. Because for all the things that Harley has 100% nailed on their very first adventure motorcycle, it has its own share of problems. Let's start with the plastics. I mean, the windscreen is flimsy to say the least. You can see it actually warping and bending at higher speeds on the highway. Then you have the badging on the tank, which is already coming off. And of course, these plastic grab rails with their 2.5 kg luggage carrying capacity, which are an absolute joke and do not belong, in my books at least, on a bike this premium. Then you have the switches. I think they are all right, but they are not backlit, so you have no idea what you're pressing in the dark. And even the TFT screen, I like the layout, and I also like how you can tilt it. The problem is it's not bright enough, and also all the readings on it, the font is so tiny that it's almost not legible. And also on the technology front, I'm really surprised that Harley doesn't even offer a quick shifter or an auto blipper for the Pan America, even as an option. But if you ask me, these are all quick fixes. My biggest gripe with the Pan America is the excessive amount of heat. I mean, this engine heats up a lot. We are talking 112 degrees, and there's absolutely no way, no escape if you're stuck in peak traffic. I really hope Harley can fix that, because if they do, they really have a really solid competitor which can thrive in the Indian market. Because they have already done a really good job in terms of pricing when you compare this to its European counterparts. And then, once they have fixed the heat, if you look at even the Pan America Standard, you know, which comes with the same engine, the same electronics, other than of course all the creature comforts and fully adjustable conventional suspension, I think at 16.9 lakhs, it can be a game changer. Because all you require easy spoke wheels for about 80,000 more, and of course engine protection, and you'll have a Harley which can pretty much do it all.